Welcome back to the Tailosive EV podcast, ladies and gentlemen. No one here owns an EV, but we are complete and utter experts. I don't know why I said uddle. Is that a word?
I think uddle is a word. Last I checked.
Subtle and...
Be careful there.
Utter. Okay, I'm going to stop experimenting with words.
Especially live on
How
air.
are you today, Nick?
I'm doing well. You know, I am so excited. We finally talked Randy out of quitting the show because he just has too many Teslas for us. The Tesla to non-Tesla owner ratio was really off on this show, and instead of getting more Tesla owners, we decided a better show would be if there was just no Tesla owners. And
right,
you know,
as long as we're worried about the Cybertruck.
We're definitely. I stay awake at night just staring at the ceiling, worrying about the Cybertruck. That's what I do. Hey, how are you?
That's your... Good, I'm good. I know that's your vehicle of choice. I'm curious if there's anyone in your personal life, because I know there's at least a few in mine, that were somewhat interested in Teslas, but were it was too out of their price range, that would have been more interested, that like they would make the purchase if they started at $25K. Do you think of many people in your life that would be like, actually, if I could get a Tesla for $25K,
so
I might jump on that?
How many people I know in my personal life? I think I know what Randy's answer would be. What would your answer be, Drew? I think that's most of the people in my personal life.
I would say most.
I don't know.
I'd say most of the people.
No, yeah, I mean
both of them.
Both of them. Drew and Randy, who we kicked Randy off. I don't know. There's one of my actual friends that I grew up with, longtime friend. He got a Ford F-150 Platinum or whatever, 2019.
Right,
I'm like, dude, why did you do that instead of a Tesla or a Cybertruck? And he's like, I don't really like the Cybertruck, and I want a pickup truck. And I'm like, okay, it's your money, but like, dang,
your opinion is wrong.
Well, no, I was just like. The car, he was like showing off the features or whatever of the auto braking or whatever. I'm just like,
cool auto braking, very
cool. It'll beep at you.
Well, Nick, Ford is the only electric automaker
in California that is promising to get on the green initiative, even though the press conference has a Tesla in the background. Just all of the levels of irony there.
That's so bizarre that so many people just refuse to acknowledge the largest one exists.
Well, they're not a car company. We have to have our car companies, Ford and GM and Toyota. Tesla's not a car company.
I mean, Bill Gates' breakdown of zero emissions vehicles, they also refuse to acknowledge Tesla's existence, which I thought was bizarre.
What's the best selling electric vehicle in the market today? For the past
McFly,
2 years.
Hello,
McFly. Think, McFly.
That's what I felt like. Think, McFly. That's how I felt seeing all these articles talking about even Bollinger is working on an electric pickup. I'm like, you mention them, you mention Nikola, but you don't even bring up Tesla. Okay, come on.
I don't know why Tesla is just so ignored. Like,
I guess they're controversial somehow because Elon is weird.
How is Nikola less controversial? The space articles, I read plenty of space news. They're not ignoring SpaceX. They're not like, oh yeah, NASA chose the best launch provider. Delta IV Heavy. It's the cheapest one. They don't do that. They're like, Delta IV Heavy has a better safety rating than Falcon Heavy, so that's why they chose it. They're not like ignoring it straight up, which is just so weird. Like, I don't even think people in the tech world skip Apple. Like, an Android sheep isn't just going to ignore the fact that Apple exists.
No.
Why are all these car
If anything,
people
it's everything
Tesla?
against the iPhone.
Exactly.
If anything, a lot of Androids are comparing themselves to the iPhone and how much better they are than the iPhone. Not so much, we're so much better than this Android. In my opinion, those two phones should be compared more often because they run the same OS, so they're in the same market. Whereas Tesla people will just straight up be like, I guess they make cars too. It's like, no. Every EV that comes out basically is, how does this compare to Tesla? I know some people have complained on this show about why we don't talk much about other EVs outside of Tesla.
Well, it's because we don't
like you
personally. We don't like you. That's the reason why.
That's the honest to God truth. No, it really comes down to none of them are able to really beat them in many metrics that are that interesting. In my opinion, the biggest factor when switching people over to electric, price and range. Price and range, that's what matters most. And there's very few cars that are really coming up against, and if they do, they require much larger batteries.
They're either getting the price right or the range right.
Right. And when they do, they typically have much larger batteries, which means that they're not being made profitably. They're being made, like the Taycan, I'm sure, has very healthy profits, to be fair. But
they're sticking a battery the size of the Model S Plaid inside of the car and getting less range than the base Model 3.
That's not good.
No.
Yeah, that's not... It's good for Porsche fans, I guess. We got to switch everyone to electric, including the Porsche
But
fans.
Hey, the interior
very well built
quality is just like
it is.
Who cares about that?
I'm sure. Porsche fans. That's who cares.
It's like Android fans
just not a
caring
Porsche
about
fan.
random Android features. Whoa! It's a full HD display with quad LED and the Snapdragon 974.
Yeah,
I'm offending half our audience.
If the Androids were $5,000, it would be pretty much exactly like that. But I think it's very easy to say the Taycan is better when you're not in the market for one and you're just driving a Civic and commenting on EVs. That's what I think. A lot of people.
A Ford. Okay, folks, calm down.
I'm saying that as I'm one of you guys. Like, I'm also sitting from the sidelines defending what I like and what I don't have and wishing I had this. I'm saying it's very easy for me to say Cybertruck's the best when I'm not in the market for one and I'm sitting on the side. Same thing with the Taycan.
There's no money.
It's very easy to be like, well, yeah, it's $140,000, but still the build quality is much better. It's like, yeah, but if you were actually in the market, I don't think you'd be as quick to be like 200-mile range. Good enough. I think that's fine. Like if you're spending that kind of money on a car, that's got to be kind of a kick to the gut to see the watt hours per mile be that high and that kind of thing. But the degradation on Teslas is proving to be over time much, much better than we thought. Electric just did a report today on a Model 3 with 100,000 miles on it, and it still charges up to 305 at 100%. But it does fluctuate. It's important to remember, depending on the software update, it'll go up and down.
What was the original battery size? Or what was the original range? 305 miles. What was that, at 200?
It was
or 320 something?
Long-range rear-wheel drive Model 3. So when he bought it, they promised it
325.
Yeah, they promised him 325. So he did mention it fluctuates. So I remind people that because we still get comments or people saying, my Model 3 stops at 290 or mine stops at this. It's not necessarily degradation. It's just because the app and the way the car is able to calculate its estimated range is kind of all over the place. So it varies, but the truth is you can still go a substantial distance. It's not like how some have claimed, like, the range will be half as good within 3 years or after 100,000 miles. It's still decent, considering it can hit above 305 after 100,000 miles on it. So if that's the case, then hitting 300,000 miles or 400,000 miles and still having the ability to go over 200 on a charge means that, for your daily tasks, you can buy an EV and drive it for years and years and years and years and still be fine. So when you're starting at 200, though, that's a different metric. But I guess we don't have a lot of Taycan road trippers right now, so
no.
It might be a while before we see 100,000 miles. I saw some people suggesting that Tesla should switch over to CCS.
Oh my god!
And I just imagine,
what on earth?
Like, I get the mindset of like it would be nice if all EVs and all charge points had the same port, but do you realize the mess that would cause with all the EVs currently that don't have, all the Teslas that don't have CCS now would have to either get retrofits or have to use adapters everywhere they go. And they would have to start retrofitting every Tesla supercharger with CCS+. It would be such a nightmare of ports and connectors. Like, it's kind of a big mess when it comes to EV charging support. I get that gas cars don't have to worry about this, but gas cars, you don't charge from home. You don't. That's what most people with EVs are doing. So it's not as big as an issue, in my opinion. Though in Europe, they had this figured out a lot earlier because they were able to actually agree on a standard, whereas the United States didn't. So there's all these different connectors. But I get why Tesla doesn't.
I think it's gonna be a bit like, smartphone cables or whatever. There's gonna be the CCS open standard, and there's gonna be the Tesla Lightning connector that's faster, better, smaller, more proprietary. You plug it in, you don't have to scan a QR code or anything. It just knows which car you are, and
I love that.
I know
it's so much better.
Yeah, those Electrify America ones, you have to get your phone out and scan the code and sign in with the app and make sure you have an account. It's just kind of like not too many
They're
steps.
expensive too.
I know
They cost more.
True, but I think at some point though there'll be two standards. I think in America there's going to be the Tesla Supercharger and the CCS Electrify America type standard, and I think a lot of cars, at some point, why haven't any automakers gotten on the Supercharger network? Like Tesla said that they want to, and I guess the terms just must be really terrible.
Theories.
They must be just total lopsided terms. Like
it could be very lopsided terms. Bollinger, which is a EV startup, not very big, but they have tweeted multiple times that they have wanted to use Tesla superchargers, and they haven't heard back from Tesla. So I don't know to the extent of how hard they've tried. They've been public about it, and they've tweeted about it. But I don't know if they've actually just sent the tweets or if they've actually contacted Tesla as a business-to-business relationship. I don't know. And in my opinion, it sounds like maybe Bollinger's just not serious enough about it. They're like, well, you don't have any cars on the road, so we're not going to work with you until you actually can start promising certain things. But maybe Tesla's really finicky about the proprietary port or something. I don't know, but they don't want their competitors flooding up their superchargers, or there might be very specific requirements, because when Tesla is charging a vehicle at a supercharger, they love displaying, here's your charge rate, here's how fast it's charging. And maybe if, I've looked at the interior of the Bollinger, it doesn't even really have a display. It's a very basic retro look. And if you can't display that, maybe Tesla's like, well, you don't meet our requirements for supercharger compatibility, so we can't give it to you. You need to have a screen that we can display info on, and you need to be able to bill through us. And like you said, maybe if Ford wanted to use superchargers, they would have to give an upfront $2 million fee to Tesla, and Ford is just like, nah, we don't like the look of that because we're pretending you don't exist. But
we're just going to write a $2 million check to no one, just in the line, just no one. No,
right.
We don't know who you exist.
I mean, I can see the argument that it does kind of look bad for your company to be charging at the competitor's station. You know? How would Ford feel about all these Mach-E's stopping at Tesla superchargers? What would that say about the brand and who's the better EV company? If you all, we got to go to the Tesla supercharger, got to charge my Mach-E. And you'd probably get a lot of dirty looks by other Tesla fans at every if you were charging there, everyone would be like, are you allowed to be here?
What are you doing
This
here?
is our club. This is our exclusive parking lot, So, I don't know. There's all kinds of reasons they might not do it. But the truth is, is there's all kinds of different gas stations and brands to choose from. And the reason it's not a direct comparison with Tesla is there are so many superchargers compared to anybody else. And each of those superchargers has more stalls than everybody else.
And
like
higher watt.
Electrify America.
More faster charging at those stalls.
Yeah, on average for the most part, I think Electrify America is hitting up to 300, 350 kilowatts now.
Okay.
Some of them, I don't know about all of them, but the problem is there's only like 2 stalls at a lot of those. So you can charge like 2 cars there, whereas a Tesla supercharger on average will have like 8 to 20 or 12, and some that they're putting in California right now are record breaking. They have one that's going up that's like 56 stalls in their V3, and they're doing the same thing with I think so.
V3.
They haven't confirmed if they're V3, but I believe they are, and they're doing the same thing in China as well, doing like 50 supercharger locations. So connectors aside, Tesla's in the lead here. They've got the standard, and I think they're really smart to do that because they know okay, it's not really practical for us, and it would screw over a bunch of our previous customers to start switching everything to CCS, because now there would be a bunch of superchargers that aren't compatible, and that would be a turnoff for their consumer. So Tesla realizes, okay, the only way that we can spin this into a benefit is if we install more superchargers than everybody at a rate faster than everybody with more stalls. And you got to admit, when Tesla's doing everything vertically integrated, like, that system is one of the best reasons to go with a Tesla. Like, the simplicity of, when you go on a road trip, you just plug in the destination, it tells you exactly where to stop. Don't think about it. Whereas with any other car, you're going to be like, oh, well, does this station have the connector I like? And do I have an app for that station? And do I have to stop here? Like, I feel like that's such a drawback to a non-Tesla. You know, Marquez's review on the Taycan, I saw so many comments saying, if the Taycan had supercharging, I would take the Taycan. Like, that's a big deciding factor.
But, like, why hasn't any other company invested? Like, if Ford is really as excited about electric vehicles and stuff, why are they outsourcing their charging to Electrify America? Like, why not just go out and build the Ford supercharging network? You know, like, it's a lot of work, but look what Tesla's doing. Like, now they own the supercharging network. Like, they can do whatever they want with the supercharging network, and it's one of the biggest
huge
selling
asset.
points. Yeah, and it took them a decade to build, sure. But,
or
not quite, 8 years. But I think it's 2012 when they announced
I think so.
But, Ford is a much larger company. Tesla didn't have a lot of free cash to be spending. And, what little free cash they did spend, they invested in the supercharging network. And look where it is now. Ford, with, all their billions of gas car sales, they could probably, it would be a lot of money, sure, but it would be an investment into the future. Mm-hmm. And they could probably half the time that it took Tesla, so from 8 years to 4 years, just by spending more money more quickly. I think they could compete if they wanted to, but they don't, which is the strange part. They keep wanting to outsource it out to Electrify America, which isn't giving them any competitive advantage. Because right now in the EV space, one of Tesla's
the
as
default.
the Taycan, as the Taycan review said, like, if it had supercharging, I'd pick the Taycan, because the biggest deciding factor right now is where can you go with this car, and how reliably can you charge, and how fast is that. Tesla superchargers, best in the industry. B class would be, Electrify America, not quite as fully built out, not as many stalls, not as good a chance of having an available charger.
Not as simple to understand with the connectors and the billing.
Exactly.
And Tesla doing it all seamlessly makes it so easy to get behind.
And just the fact that no other automaker has done this yet, and they're all just outsourcing, like, everyone just picked, now Electrify America is going to be the standard, and we're all going to...
It's probably just cheaper.
Well, I know, it's cheaper, but it's not helping any of their long-term strategy, because they're not going to have any competitive advantage. It's going to become Android versus iOS. People go to iPhone because it has iOS, and they go to Android because it has a flashy feature that they like.
It doesn't run iOS.
Exactly. Like, everyone else is just going to be on this no competitive advantage platform. Sure, maybe some of the prices will be better. They'll be able to negotiate maybe 5,000 of free 5,000 miles of free charging or whatever. But I don't know.
It doesn't seem to be changing anytime soon either. It feels like we're just going to get this problem that we have now more saturated as years go on, because it sounds like Tesla's going to keep growing their network, and if anything, they're going to grow faster than they already have, putting superchargers faster and faster speeds and more locations, so people feel like they can go more places. And everyone else is going to keep just pushing it off to someone else. I'll applaud, like Lucid Air. They said our $170,000 car comes with 3 years of Electrify America access, and I'm like, I'm just imagining stopping a Lucid Air vehicle, this premium high-class car, in like a Walmart parking lot where there's 2 stalls and you got to park next to the Leaf.
Yeah.
You got to go right next to that guy and be like, sup, and plug in your car and hope no one messes you.
The tie-dye shirt. He's like, hey, boo capitalism.
That's a nice
you're sitting
Lucid
there,
you got there. Can I sit in it? And you're like, no, don't get in my car. He's like, man, that's so cool. Please don't touch it. Whereas I don't know, something about the Tesla Superchargers taking up more stalls and feeling a bit more classy and cool looking and so simple. You just plug in. There's no screen on the stall or anything.
And it's not a mixture of like a bunch of different brands. Like they're all Teslas, right? Like you're only gonna ever see 4 different models. Roadster could be there, but it won't be able to charge. You're only gonna see
what
this
that's like?
lineup. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like the blue iMessage bubble. That's what the Tesla Superchargers are like. It's, you know, you gotta pay to play, you know. You're in the club now.
Yeah.
I'm at the Supercharger.
And what Randy was describing, like pre-pandemic, where like there'd be little huddles of Tesla fans. Like I've never experienced that, and that'd be like so much fun to like just huddle around. I've thought about that a couple times. Like that's a legit reason to get a Tesla. Like just have like some friends, right? Like some people to go talk to and fan out about this stuff. Like just like complete random strangers. Like know that you can go to any supercharger and find. And I know I could go there now with my gas car, and they'd all look weird at me. And I'd be like, "Well, I
would say it's not a good reason to buy a Tesla."
Podcast. Have you heard of that?
You know, they were. I don't know if you read about this, but they're working on superchargers that have dedicated Cybertruck stalls.
I saw that article
which is kind of weird
through my Twitter feed, and at first I was really excited. I was like, "Yes, we're gonna be able to use trailers and be able to pull through the supercharger."
That's what I thought.
Come to find out, they're just wider, and I'm like,
they're just big stalls, which is kind of weird because that also means that anyone could park there still. Like some guy in the Model 3 is going to be like, hey, there's a good stall. I like this one. It's nice and wide. And then the Cybertruck guy shows up and has to go in the compact spot. But
the little cars go in the compact spot. Spot.
I mean, it's a step in the right direction, I guess. But like, we're all in agreement. There needs to be more pull-through superchargers. They need to work on fast because there needs to be lots of those things by the time the Cybertruck comes out. Yeah. And the fact that there really aren't many right now is not a good sign.
Will the Cybertruck just not fit in a standard supercharger, or will it just be real tight?
I'm gonna guess it'll be tight. Like it'll be physically possible, just you won't enjoy it very much.
Okay.
Neither will the people next to you. It's gonna be like remember that Pixar short For the Birds when the big guy gets on the telephone line and all the little bit. That's gonna be the Cybertruck at the Model 3 convention with all the cars charging. The Cybertrucks. Don't mind me, guys. Just backing up here. And everyone can't get out of their car now. The Model X will because the doors can go straight up, but everyone else is gonna be like.
But the Model X owners have to crawl through the car to get out the back seat.
Yep. Model Y, they'll have the powered.
There you go. You can just
tailgate,
crawl all
so
the
they
way
can
out
just
the back.
Yeah, crawl out the back. That'll be the only way.
Well, and to get into your car,
I'm glad
you can just summon it. So
true. Summon's going to become increasingly more useful as Cybertrucks become more common. Especially if, did you catch the little under the breath announcement Elon made that they were planning on building over 250,000 Cybertrucks annually once they scale Giga Texas.
I missed that. Wow.
He said at Battery Day, there's probably room for at least unit volume of 250,000 to 300,000 a year, maybe more. So,
wow,
that's a lot.
That is more than the Fords, I think. And I mean, at that price, right?
Ford's in the 900,000.
900,000.
For the F-150 series.
F-150.
Yeah, Ford F-Series picked up 896,000 units in 2019. So
wow.
Ram pickups were 633,000. So this is what Tesla means by it's a huge market. You know, there's a lot of room in the pickup truck market, which is why
they only sell like 500,000 units a year right now, right? All of their Teslas.
That's estimated guidance of 2020 is 500,000. That's counting Giga Shanghai.
Yikes.
And so saying 250,
making half or 2/3 of that in one factory in 1 year, of one model.
It will not.
Wow.
Yeah, that's when they've reached peak production rate. Obviously, that won't be. I doubt it'll be 2022 even that they'll hit that amount. I'm still insistent that end of 2021 will be the first deliveries, but similar to Shanghai, it takes time to scale that up. So. Yeah, that's just crazy to imagine how common of a vehicle that's going to be. Mm-hmm. you're going to see Cybertrucks as often as Model 3.
Man, that's cool. I can't wait for that day.
Oh, it's going to stand up.
Assuming we survive 2020, right?
Like, that's a question I think I've asked you before, but knowing that, how long, because Elon confirmed at the event that they hit around 600,000 reservations or more.
Well, he said they stopped counting.
How long do you think?
And that's
yeah,
how
they
you
did
know.
stop counting.
Elon stopped counting. That's crazy.
Right. Fair to assume a lot of those orders won't go through.
Yep.
I know that. But
I'd say 90% of
when
them
do you
will not go
think when do you think we'll reach a point where you'll be able to order a Cybertruck and get it within like a few weeks?
Well, I think my let me see. I did the math. There was this website that was a combination of. I haven't even unlocked my iPad today. Sorry, I just answered the FaceTime call.
It's been that long.
Yeah. Anyway, I had done some research on the reservation numbers that I have because I have 3 reservations: dual motor, single motor, tri-motor, and I said those out of order because why not? The tri-motor is probably going to be one of the first one ready. I have one of the first 5,000 tri-motor Cybertruck reservations. There's no way I'm going to be able to.
I still don't have one.
I know. I at this point I'm thinking of just canceling and get my $100 back because I know for a fact I'm not going to have $70,000 to drop on a car
unless
in a
y'all
year.
keep listening to the podcast.
Hey, Nick the Cybertruck, it's what he's worried about.
That's our plan.
Yeah, but I don't think I'll be able to drop $70,000 in a year because we're talking about volume production starting this time next year or trial production. Sorry, volume
trial
production at the
production,
end of the year. But okay, 3 months from a year and 3 months. There's no way I can have $70,000 ready by then. So probably not going to be getting that one. The dual motor, my dual motor, via these estimates that some people on the internet were kind of taking a bunch of reservation numbers and figuring out geographic locations and stuff. And since I'm in the middle of nowhere, I'll probably get my Cybertruck sooner than a lot of Californians who have an earlier.
You're closer to the
spot in mind.
factory, I think, right?
Exactly. I'm going to be quite close to the factory. I'm only 4 or 5 hours away from the factory in Austin.
Oh, wow.
And so,
okay.
yeah, it's
Then yeah, you're on top list there.
I know.
You might want to consider selling your reservation spot. Maybe just hold on to it.
You can't do that in the T's and C's of the reservation. You can't sell or transfer your reservation.
What if you just
bought the car and then sold it to someone? Yeah, I'd have to trust someone.
What if you lied?
$70,000 worth.
How much info did they take from you though? It's just a $100 hold, right?
Name, email address, phone number, Tesla account. My Tesla account is attached to it.
Okay,
Yeah.
so they do got you pretty good then.
Yeah, and I don't know what information my Tesla account has. Probably nothing more than name, email, phone number. And,
I was gonna say maybe you could just give your account to someone else. Or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, hey, hit me up if you're on the internet here and you would like to buy my Cybertruck reservation for $2,000.
Confirmed. Nick will 100% get the first one off the line. We know this. It's a fact.
It is. Elon
There's
texted
no doubt.
me yesterday. you see what's his face? The Elon and
I don't know.
Kanye West. I forget my celebrities' names all the time. Sorry. Kanye West posted screenshots of his texts with Elon, and I'm just like, oh, that's pretty cool to just have Elon in your text feed. I don't know.
That does sound kind of fun.
That would be kind of fun just to text Elon,
Yeah, just scrolling through your messages.
What's up?
It's right there.
Elon Musk. Of course, you could rename a contact to be Elon or whatever, but just actually,
right?
Just texting Elon Musk, that's pretty cool.
That does sound weird.
Anyway, so the Cybertruck reservations, though. So I'm pretty sure I'm not going to be able to be ready in a year and 3 months for the tri-motor. Dual motor, it looks like my reservation's about 2 years, 24 months from whenever I did it. So probably a year and 3/4 away from September 2020. And I think dual motor, I might be able to swing that. We'll see. But my single motor reservation was in January of 2024 is when, because I waited so long to get my single motor reservation. I did a couple months ago. And so I have back of the line slot for the one that's going to be produced the last in the most popular one. And so I'll probably be able to afford that at that point. I mean, that's 3.5, 4 years from now. And I think after I get that Cybertruck, or after I have the opportunity to get that Cybertruck, that's about when people are going to be on the 8-week, 4-week, 2-week purchase availability.
So 2024 then?
Yep, sometime in 2024.
Okay. Man, that feels so far from now. By then, the 25K Tesla will be a thing. Right?
Yeah,
Possibly.
possibly.
At least an unveiling.
I think an unveiling and probably the $45,000 model of the $25,000 car, as Tesla likes to do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if the range is good, then
Yeah.
I'll take it.
Yeah.
If you could get good range at that price point, maybe the Model 3 and Model Y will just be so much better by then that 300-mile range just won't seem that good anymore. If you'll be able to buy a Model 3 that can go 400 miles or more. I did the math based on Tesla's numbers. I don't think they're just going to roll this out immediately. I know this is going to take a while, but the big slide that stood out to me was the range increase of 54% at the event, which, not that they're going to do this, I know, but if they were to just straight up apply a 54% range increase on the Model 3 and Model Y, that means that the long range options would be, for the Model 3, $495, for the Model Y, $486.
Oh,
So near 500 miles.
wow.
If apparently they just made all these implementations on the 4680 cells and the battery pack being structural. So if in the future you're able to buy a $50,000 car that goes 500 miles
Dude.
to a charge, I mean, maybe a $25,000 car that goes 280 isn't actually that impressive by then,
Yeah. Wow. 500 miles. That's
pretty crazy.
And it comes with cost reductions, right?
Should. Yeah, 370 fewer parts, but there's no knowing how Tesla wants to handle their profit margins. And, they did mention it would take a few years for them to actually reach those numbers. So it won't be like a overnight, boom, everything's better now. But to know that 3 years from now, that could be possible. I mean, I saw a few people theorizing, because I've been speculating for the past few days, which Tesla will get the 4680 cells first.
Ooh,
Who's top of the line, who's the priority.
Tri-motor.
And I was suggesting that was one suggestion a lot of made. I was suggesting the made in Germany Model Y, because Tesla has not confirmed a battery partner for Giga Berlin, and they have confirmed several times that they're building their own cells in Berlin. So if it's going to be operational by summer of 21, then I would say that's where they're going to be making the first cells. But someone else was suggesting that Tesla and Elon are sandbagging, basically saying something's further away than it really is to avoid Osborne effect, our favorite word on the show. But that they want to start installing these new cells into the Model S and X before the Plaid comes out, and just not really make a big deal about it.
Okay.
Like they're gonna put the cells in there, and they're gonna have the high price point because the cells are early in development, so they want the high profits. And the range of the Model S and X will just one day we'll wake up and it'll be way better. But they're not going to talk much about it. The range is just like, oh yeah, now the long range Model S goes 550, 600 miles, because it's a 2-motor, so no longer, it doesn't have the tri-motor power draw. And it'll just wake up and everyone's like, wait, what did you do? And then Elon, in some reply to a tweet, will be like, yeah, we gave it the new cells,
I almost feel like you're describing an event that's already happened. You just gave so much accurate, that sounds so like what Tesla and Elon would do.
I mean, it would avoid the Osborne, because then you wouldn't have this announcement period. There wouldn't be this next month, the range of the Model S and X are going to get 50% better or something. They just wake up and suddenly it's better. Then everyone's like, oh, now? Oh, it's out now. Cool. Let's just buy it. And that's because a lot of people were pulling apart the argument that the Cato Road facility is operational. It's building batteries right now. They've said they've built tens of thousands of them. Where are these batteries going? Are they all just for testing? They literally just going to build batteries to experiment
didn't
with?
They say they have a bunch of charge and discharge stuff that they're working on?
Right. Yeah.
So I'd imagine that's where a lot of them have gone.
But are they all going to be in the charge discharge for the next year? Any of them aren't going to go into production vehicles for another year?
I mean, I don't know how long it takes takes to test an entirely new battery, but I'd imagine if you're trying to simulate, a decade's worth of power draw, it would take at least a few months of continuous charge, discharge, charge, discharge, charge, discharge. So I don't know.
I could see a few months, but it just seems weird to me that the first production model wouldn't be until end of 21. That seems a little. Some people were saying they're going to put them in the Tesla semi pilot line, like the semis Tesla uses for themselves, because that would be, a place for the batteries to go, but not quite delivered to consumers yet.
Yeah, and if something goes wrong, what are they going to do? Yell at themselves?
Right. Like, if you're going to do the real world testing of draining batteries, charging them up, draining,
you might as well
why not test them on
something
your own vehicle that you're. Right. Why not test it on the semi? Because you can use that for delivering parts to different factories and delivering vehicles to customers anyway. So test them on something useful, not just have them sit in a factory draining power for no reason. I don't know, but definitely seems a little weird that they would have an operational facility for a full year before it actually is used for anything. I don't know. I might not understand the science well enough. That could be it. But very confused where the cells for Giga Berlin are coming from, because I've seen plenty of people say, no, they're not going to use the 4680 cells, at least at first at Berlin. But I'm like, then what? Like, are they going to build their own 2170 cells? I doubt it.
Yeah, why would you build an old stuff? That does make sense for the Model Y, I guess. I mean, I guess I was always thinking they're just going to be shipping packs over from Giga. Like, Giga Nevada still isn't at full capacity. Like, they have, like, they're only using, like, so much of Giga Nevada. And, like, did they just, like, overbuild Giga Nevada because they thought they were just going to have one battery factory in the world? Or, like, why haven't they used that to full capacity? And maybe they were waiting for this 20 or 40, what are the numbers? 40, not 2170, the 40,
4680.
4680.
4680 cells.
4680 cells to come online. And maybe they'll fill the rest of the factory up with 4680 lines, which would make sense. But I don't know. I feel like
it's hard to tell.
I feel like having all of the production in one place is just putting all of their eggs in one basket and multiplying their shipping costs, because then they'd have to export a battery pack to Germany, and then, I don't know what tariffs or whatever's like, and same with Shanghai. I mean, the battery pack should be made at the place where they're doing general assembly.
Pretty close. I mean, they partnered with CATL, which is making them there. So, yeah, it makes sense to build them close by. And I haven't seen them announce any partnership in Berlin. That if they do, then my my question will have answered itself, and I will have been proven wrong. But so far they haven't. And there is a dedicated section of Giga Berlin on the site plans that's for cell manufacturing. And Elon said multiple times, like, to the European automakers, don't focus on the American-made Model Y. Stay tuned for the Berlin Model Y. That's going to have a lot of new design techniques. So in my opinion, the picture they showed with the battery pack being structural on stage, that was a Model Y. Like, they showed the rear underbody cast and the front cast. And in my opinion, like, well, they're showing us right there. That's how it works. So might as well do it on the Y first, if anything. It will just be for Germany and Europe, I guess, but makes me very curious about the pricing and range of that vehicle once it becomes available. Will we see some of the impacts of the fewer parts and stuff? Plus the paint shop. Oh my God.
The paint shop. The Model Y in Berlin is going to be just fantastic. We got the paint shop.
It's going to be like a brand new car at this point.
Yeah.
Why don't they just call it something else? I mean, it'll look the same, but yeah, it'll get new paint, new casting presses, new batteries, new everything. Like,
yeah,
it's going to be quite the car. I'm excited to see it. But yeah, the factory's coming up fast. I keep watching those update videos. The construction rate of Berlin is insanity. It's amazing how, like, if you just checked in on Berlin once a week, you'll see just whole buildings come up. It's just like, boom, boom, we're done with that building. Boom, there's another one. There's another one. Like, seeing, like, completed buildings that they're, like, loading stuff into by the end of this year at this point, I think is somewhat likely, considering how quickly everything's shooting up over there. Prefabricated manufacturing, that's the way to do it. They got their stuff down.
They know how to build a factory line now, and it's just making me all that much more excited about the Cybertruck.
Me too. Now that we've got concrete on the ground,
Giga
Texas,
yay!
It's finally happened. I think that counts as a groundbreaking, right? Does that count?
I don't know.
Groundbreaking's kind of a vague term, but there used to be a big deal about groundbreaking ceremonies, but it seems like with Berlin and Texas, they didn't really have any.
Nicola's groundbreaking ceremony was just groundbreaking.
A groundbreaking ceremony where they didn't have any plans fitted to the city and they just shoveled some dirt around and then left the next day. Yeah, they made a big deal about that, but Tesla doesn't seem to be making a big deal about Berlin or Texas factories. They're just like, just build it. What about a ceremony where we take pictures and we do the shoveling?
That's going to take way too much time. Come on, hurry up.
Yeah. Well, Elon said starting construction on new gigafactories is going to become a pretty regular thing for Tesla, so I don't think we need to make a big deal about it every year. Like, if we have to do a groundbreaking ceremony for every factory, we're going to be doing like 6 a year, so let's not waste time. Let's just start building. We don't need to take pictures of us with shovels in the dirt. Hey, look at me. I'm digging. I'm starting the
digging with
Elon's
my golden shovel.
Waste of time. Let's forget all this.
Kind of is. I mean, when you think about it, if the point is to get
it's a PR thing
done quicker, then it's like, why?
Do you think they'll sell the they've referenced at Battery Day as well, they referenced the smaller Cybertruck. Do you think they'll sell that in the US, or will the US factory just produce the full size big Cybertruck?
I think eventually both markets will be producing both, but in Europe the larger Cybertruck is going to be the smaller production line, and in the US the smaller Cybertruck is going to be the smaller production line. As far as but I think at the beginning, it's going to be US is going to get the big one, Europe is going to get the small one, and then 5 years later or something, when Tesla's having a similar Apple Watch problem where they don't know what to do, they can just start making the smaller Cybertruck in the US and start making the larger one in Europe. And that neither of those will sell terribly well because they're not designed for that market, but there's a few people who would buy it, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's important for people to remember that, like, U.S. market for pickup trucks is insanely high compared to Europe. So if you're thinking Cybertruck's not legal in Europe or it'll be hard to drive in Europe, it's like, they don't care about the pickup truck market in Europe very much at all. It's like, I think it sells a few 100,000 a year there, whereas in the U.S. it's like a few million. So it's like 10 to 1 scale of pickup trucks. That's why America is the primary focus there. But I personally would be very interested in a smaller one because I'm not a fan of the big trucks. So
I would want
if they did sell it
bigger, please give me a bigger Cybertruck, Elon. I don't want to fit
Cybertruck
in
Plus
spots. Cybertruck Pro Max.
You want this thing to be hard to park?
Yes, actually, I'd actually rather just get out of it and have the car park itself. I think that would be a little simpler. But
true, I'm worried about the Cybertruck in the sense that I've seen auto park on Teslas not really have a good understanding on how big the vehicle is and how it scrapes. Imagine how that's going to be on the Cybertruck. I mean, that will literally, I'm looking at the point on the back of the bed. That thing will literally gouge out other cars if it tries to auto park and doesn't realize it's touching another car. It's just going to just scrape things, rip them open.
It totally would.
I need to test drive one before I'm convinced that size would be good enough for my taste. It could be, because I remember driving my F-350 at work all the time, and that was not fun. I did not enjoy that. So
it's not fun.
A little more,
but
and the Ford Rangers and Toyota Tacomas still sell pretty well. They're not the best sellers, but they do okay. So if you're going to have Model 3 and Y, which are so similar, come on, give us a little bit of variety there if possible. But Tesla's not focused on variety right now. It's pretty obvious. I mean, their lineup is literally as simple as they can make it with the colors and the sizes and interiors, and it's because they know that variety is not the problem with their products. They're not selling at the volumes they want to because there's not enough options. It's because
not
batteries are too expensive.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
so I think they're doing the right thing.
That one shareholder's motion to spend on advertising, I was just like, And the board's
You think
recommendation.
that's the problem?
Exactly. The board's recommendation was like, well, we don't make enough cars right now, so why would we spend our money on advertising, A? And B, even if we did want to spend this money in advertising, we should just do it like a nationwide, come drive a Tesla for free for a few days. And, get butts and seats. I think they even said that term. Butts and seats is what sells Teslas.
Yeah, that's
just
what sells the car.
It's that feeling when you go
commercial.
0 to 60 and you're just like,
oh my God.
And your face kind of peels back and you're just like,
right.
That's what sells a Tesla.
For me, it was the
not
interior.
a cool ad, not a holiday commercial with a big bow on the top and, some fancy graphics and a smiling husband and a wife that's just, oh, you bought me a Tesla. Oh, wow. And the white picket fence and the four kids. It's just like, no, that's not life.
Ads would be a pretty big waste if you can't make enough cars to meet the demand you currently have. That's kind of defeats the entire point. Yeah. So yeah, I don't see the point at all. And also, I never found any car commercial very convincing. I mean, with smaller personal electronics, I kind of get it because those are something you can buy throughout the year, but a vehicle is something you typically buy once or twice a decade. Mm-hmm. That's a big purchase decision that's very subjective based on what's going on in your lives, just like us. Neither of us have a Tesla, but we're still huge fans, and we're convinced that ideally our next vehicle will be a Tesla, but we're waiting for the right circumstances. We're waiting for the right financial situation. So an ad, if Tesla put an ad on TV, it wouldn't suddenly make someone be like, well, I got to buy a new car now. Nothing was wrong with my old one, but I'll get that one. It's typically it's generally more of a I drive until I need a new one, not so much I want a new one. There is a market for that, but it's much smaller. And
I just don't understand how traditional car companies think their ads are effective. Like,
I don't get it.
Buy the new 2020 Ford 150 with all the mud flaps. It's Ford tough, and it comes with 100,000-mile warranty because we back our products. Get it now for 0% down APR with $400,000 purchase price.
They never mention the price. They always just say 0% APR. That's all we hear.
Why? And Tesla's over here like, we're creating content. Like if this is practically, this whole podcast is just a Tesla advertisement every single week for an hour and 15 minutes. It's just a Tesla ad. Do you know how much money Tesla would have to pay us if this was like an actual, like, okay, if Toyota wanted us to do a weekly hour and 15-minute Toyota advertisement, let's just say I'd be full-time.
Exactly. If Tesla, you want to pay us for this.
Hey, Elon, hit us up. You can double my Bitcoin. I will send you whatever Bitcoin you want, Elon, and just double it back. That's all we're asking for.
We'll also take payment in the form of Tesla vehicle equity. So if it's like a year's worth of podcasts to get a Cybertruck, I'm in. We'll do it.
Me too.
Gladly. Every week. 1 hour or more.
We'll give you 3 hours a week of content for a
3 hours a week. Mm-hmm. Exactly. Totally worth it. My time is very valuable, right?
Yeah, so it is. But
I'm giving you my time.
And our audience. I mean, we just have dozens of people watching this
Dozens
show.
Of people. Right. Oh, man. I am so excited for the next few years. That's what Battery Day has really done.
Yes.
It's cleared up so much of confusion I guess I had, like how would the Tesla Semi have a battery that big and cost that much? How could the Cybertruck have a battery that large and cost that much? And now that they've laid out the plan, it all makes sense. Like I get it now. It's like, oh, you're going to simplify every aspect of the battery, which is the most expensive part. And if now you have this exoskeleton design and the battery pack is structural, oh my God, it's like the most basic design you could possibly imagine. It's like some wheels, some motors, a battery, some seats in an exoskeleton and glass, and pretty much everything else falls into place.
And like a computer with some cameras and a radar.
Yeah, there's some computer in there. Like the amount of just straight up simplicity they've brought here is incredible. And I don't frankly understand why the stock market reacted so negatively to Battery Day. Like, it feels like people don't understand what they just saw.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they have no clue what was unveiled. Maybe because it was very, I don't know, like technical, and people don't understand how batteries work, or maybe don't understand that the battery is the expensive part. Like, the rest of the car doesn't matter that much as like whoever can build the cheapest battery will build the cheapest EV. And likewise, whoever builds the best battery with the best range will build the best range EV. So Tesla just laid out this plan on how they're going to have the cheapest EVs with the best range.
Yep.
And that's the two most important things. Like, how do people miss that? How do people not understand? Is it just because it's long term and people were hoping for more short term results? I don't know.
I think a lot of people just got overexcited and thought that, you know, the stock market is really just weird. Like, that's the only way to describe it. It's like just a bunch of very emotional people making monetary decisions. It's like when they're excited and the market's green, they're all like, woo, it's never going to go down from here. Woo, only up.
Right.
Woo, we're going to make so much money. And then as
sums it up pretty well.
As soon as their expectations are not met or exceeded, they're like, it's going to crash.
Just panic, yeah.
And it's
that's
just
what
like,
it feels like.
That's the market in a one-person descriptor right there.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously there are people who buy at the right time when it's going down and they sell when it's high.
Sure.
But like, for some reason, the market is just so emotional. And at the end of the day, Battery Day was really big. Like,
it exceeded a few of my expectations, to be honest.
The one thing that everyone, I've watched a few stock market people who were, you know, in Tesla, and they give their reactions on Battery Day. And one guy was like, well, I was just really disappointed that they didn't have a 1,000,000-mile battery pack. And I'm just like, but it's going to be 56% cheaper to make and have more range. And it's
right.
Why was this one term, 1,000,000-mile battery pack, so important to these people that it would cause the entire tech market to crash too? Because for some reason, Tesla is grouped in with tech companies. Because when Tesla crashed, it crashed the market. Like, not the whole market, obviously, but like all of the tech stocks went down.
Yeah.
It's like Apple, Google, Facebook, they all went down for some reason after Battery Day. And I'm like, really, guys? After all of this, you know, we had the Great Depression and we had, you know, the 2008 crisis and just like all these things, and people are still just emotional human beings who don't actually care about what's being announced. They just care about their impressions and their feelings of it. And it's like...
Right. And I mean, you're completely correct in the point that 1,000,000-mile battery would be insignificant compared to what was actually announced.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, announcing that, hey, guess what? What if that's all they did? Imagine if they came forward and said, guess what? Our batteries will now have very little degradation. They'll last 1,000,000 miles.
And they'll cost twice as much.
That wouldn't, I mean, even if they costed the same, it wouldn't, or even if they were like 10% cheaper, it wouldn't be as big a deal as what was actually announced. Because if they were just like, okay, you can drive a Model 3 1,000,000 miles, great. That's good for resale value, I guess. You know, like, okay, the range won't go down as much.
If anything, a logical person would say that that's going to hurt Tesla because Tesla will not make repeat sales. People will be holding their Teslas for 1,000,000 miles instead of 150,000.
True. I mean, honestly, it's a pretty decent point. If anything, in my opinion, what's a way bigger announcement is, hey, the most expensive part of the car, we're going to reduce the price by over half. Not just 56% cheaper, which should allow for things like a $25,000 Tesla. To me, it felt like a lot of the investors were not understanding what the event was about. Mm-hmm. Because, in my opinion, if you paid attention to certain parts of the keynote, you would know that a 1,000,000-mile battery was actually somewhat plausible with the lithium iron phosphate cells, because they said those were high cycle life and that they would be high range. Mm-hmm. And CATL in China is already building those for the Chinese-made Model 3, and they said, yeah, you could probably push it to 1,000,000 pretty easily because it's such a low degradation cell in the first place, And it's not as good for super long range vehicles, but it's good for smaller vehicles like the Model 3 and this upcoming 25K model. Like, how does making a $50,000 car go a million miles a bigger deal than someone making a $25,000 vehicle that can go 300 miles per charge? Like, how is that? I don't understand how the million mile thing is a bigger deal than that. In my opinion,
that's what we were all hyped up for, right? Like the investors were like, "Oh wow, we're gonna get a million mile bid. Tesla will be the first car company to guarantee their product to a million miles. This has never happened." Ooh.
That was a hype word.
I know, and it's just like, well, okay, but what they've actually done is so much more important. Like,
oh yeah, big
we're gonna
time.
look back
Scaling
at
battery production.
Exactly, just like we looked back at like the Model 3 announcement day or the Model S announcement when they announced the Supercharging network. We look back on those days and we were like, that was a big day for Tesla. I think we're going to look back at Battery Day and be like, that was the point where Tesla went from niche tech product to mass market dominating auto company.
Right. That's when they unveiled their plan from going from 2% or 1% of the market to dominating the market.
Yeah.
This is how we 7%. Yeah. This is how we
sound
kill.
like a lot, but it's like twice as many cars.
It doesn't sound like a lot, no. But to be fair, they did say they wanted to eventually hit 20 million cars a year. Like, that's their end goal, which is insanity.
20 million cars.
And there's not currently an automaker making that many vehicles.
I'm just trying to visualize in my head the demand. Like, okay, Ford F-150, almost 1 million sold every year. It's 20 times that amount. Think how common a Ford F-150 is on the road. Now multiply that by 20 times, and that's how common a Tesla would be.
The global market, 77 million units sold worldwide in 2019.
So they're talking like 20 or
best case scenario, Tesla's dream ideal future, they will hit 20 million a year.
Yeah, like that's a third of the auto market, right?
Mm-hmm.
1 out of 3 cars would be a Tesla. Wow.
New cars sold, yeah.
Well, and after a while, it would become 1 out of 3 cars, period.
Once it becomes the
standard. California is getting rid of all those gas cars, and Ford is just right on the top of everything as the most important.
Ford is right on top. To answer your question earlier about why Ford isn't investing as much in the network, I think it's because they don't see this as urgently as Tesla does. For one, they did not really confirm that they would make more than 50,000 Mach-E's.
Mm-hmm.
So Tesla, when they unveil a product, they're like, how many are you going to make? As many as we can. They don't put a number, we're going to start with 100,000 Cybertrucks and then see how we feel. Like, no, they're just like, everything we unveil, we're going to try to make an infinite amount of, depending on how many people will buy. And Ford didn't really do that with the Mach-E, and they probably don't see electrification as something that needs to happen right this second. They're probably still going to rely on gas and internal combustion engines for a few more years. And because of that, they don't feel the need. Like, the Mach-E, I would say, is pretty price competitive to the Model Y with the range for what you pay. But the battery pack is so much larger.
Plastic circle in the middle of your screen.
Yeah, I mean, interior choices aside, I'm not a big fan of that. But I am fairly confident that the profit margin on the Mach-E is nowhere near as good as the Model Y, just because of how much it costs Ford to build a battery pack of that size and to go that far. So what it means is they're doing electric, but they're not living off of electric like Tesla is. Other automakers like Porsche can be like, yeah, we know how to make an electric car, but if they were told that we're going to stop production of all of our internal combustion engine vehicles right now and just do electric, couldn't do it. Wouldn't be profitable. And because the numbers of their EVs are so low right now, they don't see the need. Why do we need to put up charge stations everywhere? Because there's not going to be that many of us. But Tesla is thinking way more long term. They're thinking way more sustainably of like, well, if we're planning on selling 500,000, 1 million, 2 million cars each year, and that number keeps growing, we're going to need chargers. So we better start now.
Yeah.
And they better be good.
It's kind of like that old saying, the best time to plant a tree was 10 years ago. Like, for Ford, the best time to start making a charging network is 10 years ago. Like, I guarantee you, if Ford had a 10-year-old charging network,
Yeah.
they'd be dominating right now, just like Tesla kind of is.
Probably.
Tesla has an 8-year-old
Yeah.
charging network, and okay, the best time to plant a tree was 10 years ago. The second best time is today. So get on that.
Right. Get on it as fast as you can. I know a lot of people that disagree with me on this, and it sounds very fanboy-esque. So if you hate us being Tesla fanboys, I'm going to bring it on. I think Tesla has a permanent lead
Okay.
in the automotive space. After Battery Day, especially now, because I was expecting certain things to be announced, but I wasn't expecting the extremeness of it. My prediction was like, we want to break the $100 per kilowatt hour zone. We want to get it down to like 95, 90, maybe 80. And they came forward and said, we're going to half the price.
Yeah.
And we're going to do it at a fraction of the cost, and it's going to increase range, and we're going to be able to build it in a smaller footprint. And they're already moving on this now with manufacturing efficiencies, and no one else could even catch up to their old batteries with the 2170 cells when it comes to price per range. No one could even catch up, and now they're already working on the next generation of cells that they're going to be probably mainstream by 2023, 2024. That's when you start seeing the 25K Teslas, and imagine the range of their own vehicles like the Model 3 and Y and Cybertruck by then. Like, I really don't understand how anyone else could catch up. I don't see it. Like, they would have to move faster and smarter.
Barring any failures on Tesla's part, I think you're right.
Okay.
So if the 4680 cell,
complicated
one of
numbers.
these years I'm going to get it, like I did 2170
Okay.
finally. But 4680 cells, if those end up being a bust, if for some reason they aren't able to produce them as quickly as they want to, if for some reason they're not as cheap as they want to, if what they've announced at Battery Day is a bust, I think Tesla is always going to be there at this point. They're not going to disappear.
Yeah.
Tesla is
No.
always going to
Too big.
Like, just like Ford has been here for 100 and however many years, like Tesla's always going to be here from now on. But
Probably.
as far as domination, it really depends on the next like year and a half or so. If they can prove that they can get Giga Austin online, Giga Berlin, get these new 4680 cells.
Hey, there you go.
One of these days I'll remember 4680 cells. If they can get factories built and they can reliably produce these batteries, then yeah, they're a dominating factor in the EV space. Now, I'm not entirely convinced. I mean, I'm like 85% convinced that EVs are going to be the future, but I'd say there's a solid 15% chance that EVs will not be the future. And if that's the case, then Tesla won't be a dominating factor. Now, I'm not talking about hydrogen or some nuclear power. I'm talking gas cars. So assuming that EV is the future, and assuming Tesla can meet all of their Battery Day stuff and build factories, I think you're right.
So you think there's a small chance the internal combustion engine would stick around?
Yeah, I think so. Long term, I think there's a lot of places, and I realize, Drew, you're in California, and you guys have been worried about climate stuff for a while, and just like I've been worried about the Cybertruck for a while, but there are other places in the U.S. and around the world where people are, especially internationally, they're just trying to eat, right? And they're not worried about their environmental impact really, because they don't have much, right? Like, they're not driving around in a big SUV to pick up their kids from soccer. I think especially internationally, EVs are probably not going to be a thing for 100, 200 years, just because the infrastructure has to be built, right? Like, EVs are highly reliant on good infrastructure. And where I am in the middle of Timbuktu, we have one supercharger that's about 30 minutes away from me, and the nearest supercharger after that's like a couple hour drive. So for me, I mean, I know I can charge from home. So I'm fine with it, and I also know that I can charge, any gas station if they'll let me plug in, plug into the wall outlet. I know I'm never going to be stuck, but I think for the mass market adoption, the infrastructure really needs to be built out for Tesla to dominate, and they're getting there. But electric charge in my area, no one I know is even remotely interested in Tesla. One of my IRL friends, one of my two IRL friends, he's kind of into Elon Musk and the SpaceX stuff, and I was trying to bring him into Tesla stuff. I was like, hey, I do an EV podcast too, and he just totally got lost. He's like, wait, EVs? I'm like, yeah, no, those things. He was just thinking, the Nissan Leaf type thing. So I was trying to explain, better range, better charging, better blah blah blah, and he's like, still, but my gas pickup truck is $5,000, and I throw $40 of gas in it, and it's good for a week. And I'm like, okay, yeah. I think there's a good portion of people who are not going to be convinced on an EV. And I preface this saying I think there's only a 15% chance of EV not being the future, as I think it's much more likely than not that EV will be the future, just from the fact you can conveniently charge at home and charge with sunlight and all that fun stuff. But there's a chance that, Tesla's been successful in their bubble, but their bubble isn't much bigger than the big cities.
I see. Well, I guess I'm a little less, I wouldn't say 15% chance. I would say probably more like 1% or less, just because, I feel like the amount of industry and amount of investment over the past 100 years into the combustion engine has allowed it to be, $5,000 and $40 to fill up your gas tank. But we're still in the really early stages of the EV market, to the point that once, if Tesla reaches their milestone in the next 10 years, imagine another 10 and another 10 after that. I could see it within, even internationally, even in third world countries like the ones I've visited, you could get to the point where, because EVs are so simple to build and there's less moving parts than in a combustion engine, it would be cheaper and more practical to get an EV at a certain point. Once they reach energy density and weight of a certain amount and they're able to build them at scale, it will start to become more expensive to keep using a gas car, not just ownership-wise, but also just upfront. Just simply because of how little parts there are to an EV comparative to internal combustion engine. So,
like a lot of
I mean, they have power.
Third world countries.
They have electricity.
Well, it's not a stable grid though. Like
some are better than here, actually.
No.
To be fair.
Speaking of California, and your guys' is totally stable grid.
No, I mean, in America we have 110 outlets, whereas in somewhere like the Philippines they're all 220. I mean, you would charge faster there, and that's not a super developed, not a super.
I'm thinking like Africa, like Ethiopia, and like
they'll be last.
We're getting a can of gasoline is a lot simpler. Moving a single can of gasoline is simpler than laying a long wire that has to go for hundreds and hundreds of miles. I don't know.
I'd say now you're correct, but I think that with battery production scaling and Tesla producing more and more, there's overall less parts as a whole, and a gasoline infrastructure takes more energy and more work than an electric one. So the idea of these big companies like Tesla or other big EV companies in the future going after the smaller, more third world markets, just like Apple's trying to break into India right now, or that kind of thing. In time, I think they're going to go to where the people are, and it's way easier to put up just a bunch of solar panels and a charge station than it would be to be like, okay, we need a semi truck to come refill this gas station every week. Instead, just making something that's completely independent. And I'm not saying this is going to happen in the next 10 years, but in the next 50 to 100, I could see it becoming the standard as battery production scales and they hit, right now, Sandy Monroe said that dollar per kilowatt hour on the Model Y is around 108. And if they're planning on reducing it, by like 56%, over the next few years, then you could imagine much, much cheaper cars than gas cars even. And as they get older, as they've been around for more decades, even just affordable electric cars are like still super new. Mm-hmm. Like Model 3 was just 3 years ago. And if we're talking in the scale of decades, I mean, I could see used EVs. Like imagine the 25K Tesla 10 years old. Imagine how cheap that's going to be. Yeah. Like that's going to start falling below the 20K mark. And eventually, I think as cheap as the used gas cars you and I drive these days. When I paid $3,500 for mine, it was built 10 years ago or 13 years ago now. I think electric will get there. I have confidence. I think so.
Yeah, I have 85% confidence. So.
Okay, I mean, we got to mostly agree.
I think we mostly agree. Yeah, I just think, okay. Another example that I was thinking while you're monologuing there, I wonder what the future of wars are going to look like. There's a lot of EMP type weapons, directed energy stuff that really screws up electronics. And in some kind of post-apocalyptic end of World War III type thing, I could see a lot of war implementation of, bricking electronic devices. And so I'd say, I hope there's no war, but
there'll be bigger problems
in this 15% chance. Yeah, in this 15% chance, there's a smaller subset that we kind of decide as a society that we're too dependent on electronics. And, while I enjoy talking to you over FaceTime and doing a podcast, and I'm sure everyone enjoys Twitter, it is kind of taken over our lives in a way that technology really hasn't in the past, as far as just this deep integration. And so I wonder if, something might be unstable, as a piece might fall apart there, and society might decide, we'd want to go back to a more simpler time where, you could fix a car in your garage if you kind of knew how and you had a few tools. Whereas you can't fix a Tesla, even if you have, what's that guy, Rich Rebuilds? He tries to fix Teslas. Yeah. Even then, he doesn't have a great success rate, right? No. It's just, they're so complex.
Tesla makes it hard on them.
Yeah, Tesla does purposely make it complex, and they could probably change a lot of that with software. But at the end of the day, a Tesla is still a lot harder to work on than any gas car. And I mean, newer gas cars are also hard to work on, but I'm talking about my gas car is super easy. You open up the hood and you're like, engine, transmission, look, radiator.
Right.
Okay, cool. I don't know how to fix anything, but I can see them there. No. I don't have to unbury them underneath plastic and take apart.
Though there's decades of industry to support that, because we've had them for so much longer. Whereas I think that could come around in time. Because right now, Tesla's whole focus isn't let's make the car super repairable. It's how do we make them cheap and go far. So the focus on, being able to work on it yourself or fix it up isn't high on the list right now. It might not ever be. If they're building the batteries directly into the framing of the car, it won't be very easy to sell a battery pack. Yeah. So I doubt Rich is very excited for that. But I think Tesla's goal isn't to make the most repairable, fixable cars in the world, so they just want to make them quality and cheap and go far. So I mean, if we're in World War III, there will be a whole other I'm not worried about Teslas by then. If EMPs are going off, we have all new levels of problems than the internal combustion engine. But
I'm talking post that. Post that, I think humanity would realize that we were too dependent on one thing that had one fatal flaw, that, gas, internal combustion engine is super simple, right? They're complex machines.
Though pumping gas would not be very easy with EMP attacks, to be fair.
They did it long before electricity. I mean...
No, I know. But, gas stations nowadays are typically very electric.
Well, okay, yeah. I'm talking again, the civilization that would arise after World War III that's trying to be less dependent on
if you have giant tanks of gas that are powered by gravity,
or hand pumps, or
you're good, or a hand pump. But I just mean
hamsters in the back doing on their wheel.
The gas stations of today that most of us use would not work in that type of attack.
No, absolutely.
And there are certain even combustion engine cars that
lots
wouldn't
of
work.
I think
during
both of
an
our
EMP.
cars would probably not work either because the computer
Right.
in there. But older cars, 80s type classic
Sure.
cars.
Mad Max situation, then yes.
I still need to see that movie. I think you guys were watching that.
It's a good movie.
Brittany was cutting my hair, right? Was that what you guys were watching?
No, that was I don't remember what that was.
Anyway, I have a
We
long
didn't
list
finish
of
it. It
movies
wasn't
I
very
need to
good.
watch.
Watch Mad Max Fury Road, because that is the music they used for the Cybertruck unveiling was from that movie. Which is why I was so in love with the Cybertruck unveiling, because I love the song they chose. It's called Brothers in Arms, and it's just a really epic, like, I love playing that music when I'm driving. It's like great driving, like epic, like you're racing and you're changing lanes and stuff. And they chose that song, and I was a big fan of that song before the event, and right when they're like, I present the Cybertruck, and then the music, and it was like the most apocalyptic thing ever.
What is this called?
Though in a Mad Max situation, I would want to have solar panels in a Cybertruck over a gas car.
True. Yeah.
If EMPs were a problem.
If EMPs, and that's the thing, like, yes, gas cars are dependent on oil production as like their single point of failure, which is why 1980s had the oil crisis. But EVs are similarly have a single point of failure, and I think their single point of failure is a little bit more vulnerable than a large supply chain. And you can take oil out of most places in the world and refine it and turn it into gas. I mean, Alaska has lots of reserves, and we're not.
Yeah, North Korea has cars powered by wood.
I didn't know that.
That's a real thing.
Oh,
yeah. They just there's little smokestacks on the back. You literally just throw wood in there and drive around. That might be good in the apocalypse.
I think North Korea will survive the apocalypse.
Well, some of them, yeah.
They don't
that
starve
type
first.
of car.
They don't starve to death first.
You're right. If you're just off, well, you would still. It'd be hard for like one guy to create his own gasoline. But
yeah, and that's the whole thing is delicate in gas production is delicate in the system. Like the supply chain can be disrupted. Like most of our oil is coming from Saudi Arabia and the Strait of Hormuz. If that gets closed, that'll screw it all up. But within a few months, we could ramp production up in Texas or Alaska and kind of divert, which is what we did during the 1980 oil crisis when the Strait of Hormuz was closed. We kind of pivoted. It took a couple months. So if, no one had any gas and they had to ration it out and stuff. Yeah. But it only took a little while for us to find other places to get oil. And I think an EMP doesn't have that option, right? Like after an EMP, you scramble the electronics. Like they don't work. You can't. Like the grid, we cannot replace our current grid right now easily. Like our current electrical grid has taken hundreds of years to produce. And as you know, up in California, NorCal, PG&E doesn't like updating its grid stuff, right? And so you guys are using real old grid stuff, which means if all that stopped working, it would take a really long time to rebuild the network, the grid network. And it wouldn't just be that month or, even a year-long pivot to a different.
But we'd have much bigger problems than transportation with a massive EMP hit like that. Yeah, there'd be lots of problems.
I think that's one of the larger problems, though. Out of the top 10 problems after a nationwide EMP, I think transportation is possibly one of the top 5 problems, because transportation of goods, people, and grocery stores would be empty soon. I mean,
though I think even combustion engine transportation would be hit substantially, even if they were gas.
Yeah.
If they didn't have electric. Yeah. If you couldn't pump gas at any gas pump.
I think during World War III, it would be. It's got so dark. I'm sorry, everyone. During World War III, the EVs and the gas cars would be affected mostly in the same way, because gas cars are highly electricized. I'm more talking the civilization that comes after World War III.
Yeah.
So anyway. Welcome to 2020, folks. We are seriously talking about World War III.
If we survive, then maybe gas cars have a shot.
Hey.
But if there isn't a giant apocalypse, then I would say if the way things have been going the past few decades continue to go, then I would say electric's probably where everything's headed. Even the semi-trucks.
Yeah.
Even the two-wheelers and the motorcycles and third worlds, like they'd probably be really happy that they could charge from home and stuff. And not have to worry about emissions, which are really bad in a lot of third world. So they care, I'm sure, to a certain extent, especially if they can get it cheap. Plus acceleration is nice. Though I would take a low acceleration Tesla if it was cheaper, for the record. I know that
But
they're
you
like,
wouldn't take an internal combustion Tesla that did autopilot just for that?
no.
Okay. I still would.
I mean, it's so absurd that I would probably get stoned to death for buying one.
Why?
If the whole company's vision is to accelerate sustainable energy, and then they made a gas car, and then I bought one, everyone would look at me like, Drew, what's your like the amount of public backlash I would get and Tesla would get would be catastrophic.
Yeah, I don't think Tesla would ever do that, but
no,
I'm for the idea of it because I am in it for the technology. I could really care less about the environment for most parts. You know, not lighting bonfires of gas in my backyard, but at the same time, I want my charging brick. Gosh darn it!
Well, I've been to one too many gas stations now, and there's been so many situations where I've just been like, I wish I was just leaving the house with a full charge.
Yeah,
there's so many trips I've had to start now where it's like I gotta go to the gas station now, and primary reason I can convince someone like my wife that an EV is worth it is because of the cost savings. And if it did need oil changes and gas changes, and it was new and expensive, so had higher insurance rates than our current car, yeah, it would kind of defeat the point,
Yeah.
And I know long term they're going to be able to get an electric vehicle that has lower cost of ownership and lower upfront cost. So I'd rather have that. At the end of the day, cost is the main thing, and I think long term EVs will get cheaper than gas. So I'm just, you know what? Don't bother. Keep going with the electric stuff. Find a way to make. If you can drop the price of kilowatt hour by 56%, then yeah, that's, in my opinion, that's the death of the combustion engine. You won't need one after that. As Cybertruck is kind of proven with even comparable priced trucks, doesn't really make sense to, because you're going to use it. You're going to pay for gas. You're going to pay for oil.
I'll have to put this out here as maybe an Elon tweet because, he's always making the Cybertruck. Tesla is going to be the best manufacturer of apocalyptic vehicles. Back to the EMP thing. I bet you the Cybertruck has a fair shot of surviving EMP because it's basically Faradayized. With the Faraday cage is some kind of, all you have to do is ground the stainless steel body to the ground. And I think you'd have to do something with the electronics inside the cabin. But I don't think it would be impossible to Faradayize the Cybertruck just because it's stainless steel made out of one piece of, one or two pieces of welded stainless steel, not body panels. And you'd have to ground it every time you park, and, every time you're moving, it wouldn't be grounded. But
true.
That'd be a good tweet.
That could. I wouldn't be shocked looking at it. I mean, if you just look at that thing, you'd be like, nothing can stop it. Yeah, that thing will be fine in the apocalypse. That's what it's built for.
Don't know if the screen would survive, but I think the battery pack and the motors would. And
yeah, you might have a very basic form of vehicle, but yeah, I don't know. Stainless steel could help though.
That's why
anyway,
you're gonna have the
exciting stuff.
The Martian Cybertruck would survive because it's radiation hardened.
Oh, true. That's a good point. There's never been a combustion engine on Mars. Only electric vehicles there.
And they call it the red planet. I think it's the green planet.
Yeah, I think so. Anyway, thank you guys for listening. We'll see you all next week. Take care. Bye-bye.
Ba-ba.